Right, so before we get into this one, I'm going to replace a word. The word in the article is the very first word in the very first line of the title. I'm going to replace it with degenerate. Why, you might wonder? Because I don't want to risk my channel getting demonetized or breaching the YouTube monetization partnership program. Therefore, I'm going to take a very tactful approach with how I convey what is written in the article I have archived and linked below. This was linked to me by Cognitive Thought. I will link his channel. I know he sent it also to Sinatra. Link to him as well. Good friends, I like him. Please consider subscribing. The subject is about whether or not degenerates should be prosecuted for watching CP and whether or not they should be put on what are called diversion courses, which is a proposal created by the think tank Justice, which recommends softer treatment for offenders. This caused me to reach out to people on Twitter, where I put out a very clear message. How do we treat degenerates? Many coming up with many reasons and answers. I noticed in Cognitive Thought's stream when he covered this, the majority argued that they should simply be made to cease to exist. I can't agree to that, but I can agree to certain punishment. I did put a point in his chat where many were conflating degenerate as if the degenerate had already crossed the line, and that we should make sure those lines are quite clear, because one can be treated to an extent. The other doesn't deserve to be treated at all. But there is context, and as always, it matters whether or not a court disagrees with you or whether the public disagree. Context matters, so the nature of the crime, we should certainly assess it based on what they did. Critics of this report have said that the process could be exploited, and that some offenders need tougher treatment that they believe would steer them away from reoffending. I disagree with that. I think once you've offended once, it is highly likely you're going to reoffend. Somebody told me the correct word instead of degenerate should be maps, but I'm not going to use it. I don't like legitimizing that term. I don't like using the word degenerate either, but it is a minor concession for this one video. In the report, it is recommended that those caught viewing certain images, abusive images, should not be prosecuted. Instead, the police would be told to let thousands of offenders who look at the indecent photographs and films of these people, younger people, off the hook by sending them to workshops, which are called diversion courses, similar to drink driving awareness programs. The new Victims Commissioner, Dame Vera Baird, actually thinks this is a good idea to ease the strain on the creaking criminal justice system, which I'm sure has many of you thinking, how about no? Because we shouldn't be looking for ways to not send people to prison for breaking the law. We should instead be looking for ways to make sure that when they go to prison, that the incentive isn't to go out and re-offend. Yes, that does mean some rehabilitation, but of course, given the nature of the degenerate crime, it is unlikely, once the crime has been committed, that they can truly be rehabilitated. Perhaps additional surveillance could in fact be implemented. A life perpetually on a dog tag, living within the confines of an enclosure. Kind of like a prison, but more like a zoo. I'm not trying to give solutions, I promise. It was merely an idea posited to me on Twitter, and Discord I believe, because I asked my patrons. Over the last 11 years there has been a surge in certain offences, with a record 159,740 sexual assaults happening last year in the UK alone. The figure was only 52,166 in 2008. I would point out the number of those actually coming forward, growth in population, there are other variables. But yes, the number has gone up significantly. Victims are now, because of how society has changed, more willing to come forward, and police are now more likely to take complaints seriously given the nature of certain historical ones, like Operation U-Tree related, basically nearly every presenter on the BBC from the 1970s. This increase has understandably put pressure on resources. Couple that with the cuts in police budgets, yes, they are under incredible strain, that in trying to deal with the influx of certain bladed-related crimes. Under the Justice's plan, an offender with no convictions for certain degenerate crimes who view the images would be eligible for the deferred prosecution scheme. So to avoid prosecution, People who have to go through this would attend meetings, educational ones, and agree good behaviour. I have no idea what that means. I assume it's a contract. They would have to complete 5 sessions, 90 minutes each, over 4 months. Then 1 follow-up session 8 months later. With failure to finish the scheme, meaning prosecution, those suspected of more serious offences, or those who have committed more serious offences, do not qualify. I think the argument being made here is that if you viewed the images for gratification or have them on your computer, you haven't crossed the line to committing an offence, a sex offence that is. You are still, in the eyes of these people who are positing this idea, nothing more than a degenerate who hasn't taken it into the real world, and to them you can still be treated. And many people will say there are ways and advances being made that can allow for people to be treated. Many saying psychology, psychological help, medication, if any at all exists. Others recommending castration to lower one's libido, but as we know that doesn't work. It has been proven to not work. Others recommending that the people involved, and I think this was on Cog's stream, that those who are caught looking at images or even getting involved, all of them, should give up their bodies for drug testing. Replace it with the animals with animals. And in truth, I'm not sure if any of it can work, because we've yet to truly be able to cure someone of this condition. And I know I use the word condition, but I use it for somebody who's attracted to a child, not someone who has acted on it. If someone has attractions towards children and wants help, we should offer it to them. Oh, and others recommended the sex bots, but honestly, no. If people who are degenerates want to then do things to robots that look like children, I think that's scary, and a rather peculiar and very uncomfortable solution, one I do not support. I would also point out, if they were into that, they could just buy one of those baby dolls from the toy shop. And I hope they're not doing that. Within the report it also says, for some types of sexual offending, prosecution and prison can be ineffective. It is often the shock of the arrest and confirmation that what they are doing is wrong that causes these individuals to stop offending. A number of streams Cognitive Thought has done involved people who have entrapped, people who would text children in an attempt to groom them, meet up with them, kind of like the Chris Hansen stuff. These people, these vigilantes, would film the meetup and then they would trap them. The most recent one I saw was a guy who then called his boss while he was trapped, and he then confessed to his boss that he was going to be hated because he was a paedophile. I think the guy went to prison for it. I commend him for admitting to it, but his excuses were terrible, and I'm not playing the video clip of it. I'm just going to link Cog's channel and you can go find it. In the paper it also says the scheme would be just as effective as a post-conviction sentence, if not more, without the need to use court and prosecution resources, taking the burden off the CPS onto something else, so money would still be needed for it. One would surmise additional funding would have to be raised through the government or taken away from the police anyway. The police investigate 1,000 cases of degenerates who view children-related images each month. That is a lot of people who deserve to be in prison. I know I'm taking a no-nonsense approach, but I'm a judge. What do you expect? Peter Saunders from the National Association of People Abused in Childhood has said, why would we consider not prosecuting some of the most vile criminals in society just because we can't cope with the numbers? And this is absolutely the nail in the coffin. By doing what you are doing to those who have been abused, it looks like you are devaluing what they have gone through, what they have experienced, with their images being used for somebody else to get off when they themselves were a minor. You are normalizing it to an extent that by looking at these images you won't go to prison for the first offence, and that's only if you're caught. Perhaps instead find more ways to try and suppress access to such images. That's an option. Of course, many now say, but that means the internet's not free and it's being censored. On the subject of child-related degeneracy, yes. And I know there are a number of creators who have existed in the past who tried to be edgy boys by advocating for this, to this what appears to be decriminalisation of it, of degeneracy. However, looking at these images does mean you've crossed a line, and I'm now going to give an opinion on it, because I've been very neutral throughout. I think, to me, if you are somebody that admits you have a problem and gets the medical help needed, We have parity of esteem for a reason, and of course advancements need to be made. We need to work on that, to try and find a cure. If you come forward and you have not acted on those urges, you deserve help. If you're hiding in your room, cracking one off, to that degeneracy, you are a criminal. If you act on it, you are a criminal. I know things have changed. It used to be, oh, I've got sweets in my mum marked van over in the car park over there. Now it's, I've got free Wi-Fi in my car just parked next to your mum's. However, this degeneracy is unacceptable. Those who have looked at these images are criminals and belong in a prison. Yes, I will agree, means assessing this is the correct way forward, but sentences should for all of it be hefty, and there should be a price. You perpetually under surveillance regardless of cost. You should be not allowed anywhere near children. Maybe we should cordon off a zone in the country. Make it a roundabout perhaps, where you can live on the roundabout only. That way, everyone sees you all the time, and we know the children are safe from you. Those who have committed the more serious offences deserve to stay there for the remainder of their lives. But, since you are so willing to violate the human rights of someone else, I firmly believe yours, to an extent, should also be revoked. You should not have the freedoms, the liberties of any other person, any other subject in this kingdom. For that, you should spend your life in a teeny tiny cell with barely passable, no Wi-Fi, no access to television, no newspapers. How about a piece of blank paper and a crayon? And the crayon's going to be quick save, no frills, so it might get brittle after a couple rubs. I don't agree with capital punishment being an option, nor castration. Younger me, yes. Older me, I want to help those before they act, and I want to forget those that do act, by making sure they live an incredibly long time for as little as possible cost to the taxpayer that is, because those people that have crossed the line have already shown that they don't care for human life, and therefore are unworthy to live within society. We shouldn't be seeking for ways to alleviate the burden on the police and the justice system. We should be making sure those that commit the crimes know never to do it again by losing something very precious to them. And I don't mean their life in absolution, I mean their life potential. Anyway, I would love to know what you think about this, because this is quite dark. Later on today, I'm going to be responding to PMQs over on the Moisky Live channel. I've also put out a video on there about Andrea Leedsom's opinion on the Scottish independence. So please, by all means, go and watch both, or be there tonight for the stream, 9:30 PM GMT. If I don't, I hope you'll have a lovely Wednesday, and thank you all for listening.